The region of space called the Threshold sat near the galactic core, where gravity from multiple stars created natural bottlenecks. Admiral Hyun had chosen this place to make his stand. The Allied fleet gathered here, over 4,000 ships representing every Council species. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, but it was still outnumbered 2-1 by what was coming. Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, a massive carrier built in orbit around Mars. The bridge, crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise from months of constant drilling. They had trained for this moment. Now it was real. Fleet status, Hyun said calmly. All ships in position, Admiral, his tactical officer reported. Human vessels forming the vanguard, Allied forces in support formations, fighter wings ready to launch on your command. Hyun nodded. Dr. Choi, status of the weapon? Minji answered from her station. She had insisted on being here for the battle, personally monitoring the stellar weapon. Platforms are charged and ready. The star is prepared. We just need to lure them into the kill zone. They will come, Hyun said with certainty. They have swept through this galaxy like it was empty. They think we are prey. They will not expect a trap. On the other side of the fleet, Fleet Commander Borum prepared her vanguard force. These were the fastest, most heavily armed ships humanity had. Their mission was to engage the harvesters, hurt them badly, and then retreat toward the trap. Many would not survive. Borum had volunteered without hesitation. Remember, she broadcast to her commanders, we are not trying to win this engagement. We are trying to make them angry, hit them hard, kill as many as you can, then run. Lead them to the Helios system. After that, the weapon does the rest. Among her fighter squadrons, Yoonji performed final checks on her ship. She commanded 36 pilots now promoted after the battle at Vrex Prime. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced ease, but her heart pounded. This was the battle that would decide everything. Scared? Her wingman asked over a private channel. Terrified, Yoonji admitted. You? Same. But we have killed harvesters before. We can do it again. Yes, Yoonji agreed. We can. We will. The harvester fleet arrived exactly when human intelligence predicted. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a massive formation that filled space like a swarm of locusts. Over 1,000 ships, each one massive and dark. At the center was a vessel larger than all the others, designated by humans as the Nexus Prime. Intelligence believed it was the controlling consciousness of the hive mind. For a moment, both fleets faced each other in silence. The harvesters had never encountered organized resistance like this before. Every species they had faced had been crushed quickly and easily. But this fleet was different. This fleet was waiting for them, formed in precise military formations, weapons ready. Admiral Hyun spoke into the fleet-wide channel. His voice was steady and clear. All ships, open fire. Space erupted. Thousands of weapons fired at once. Human missiles streaked toward the harvester fleet at speeds that made them almost impossible to intercept. Plasma weapons cut through the darkness like burning swords. Energy beams and kinetic rounds and exotic weapons filled the space between the fleets with death. The harvesters responded with their own weapons, bioorganic projectiles that sought out living tissue, energy drains that could shut down entire ship systems, physical rounds launched with terrifying force. The first minutes of battle were pure chaos as thousands of ships tried to destroy each other. Borum's vanguard took the worst of the initial assault. They were at the front, absorbing the harvester attack while dealing massive damage in return. Ships died in seconds, vaporized by concentrated fire. But for every Allied ship destroyed, the vanguard killed 2 or 3 harvesters. They were veterans now, hardened by months of smaller battles. Yoonji launched her squadron directly into the heart of the harvester formation. Her mission was critical and almost certainly suicidal. She had to plant a tracking beacon on the Nexus Prime so the stellar weapon could target it precisely. It meant flying through hell itself. Stay tight, she ordered her pilots. Dodge, weave, never fly straight, make them work for every shot. Her fighters moved like a school of fish, flowing through the battle in perfect coordination. Harvester point defense tried to track them, but human reflexes enhanced by neural implants were faster. Yunji lost 3 pilots in the first minute. The rest pressed on. The Nexus Prime loomed ahead, a monstrous ship 3 kilometers long. It was surrounded by escort vessels and defensive systems. Getting close enough to plant the beacon meant flying through all of them. Yunji had one chance. At this range, with her shields failing and her ship damaged, one chance was all she would get. "Cover me," she said simply, and her squadron responded without hesitation. Her fighters laid down covering fire, drawing attention away from her. Yunji dove toward the Nexus Prime, her ship shaking from near misses. Alarms screamed. Displays flashed red. She ignored everything except the target. She armed the beacon and fired it like a missile. The small device streaked toward the Nexus Prime and attached magnetically to its hull. At the same moment, a harvester weapon hit Yunji's fighter. Fire filled her cockpit. Pain overwhelmed her senses. "Beacon planted," she managed to transmit. "Target is marked. Get out." Her fighter died around her, systems failing catastrophically. But through the flames and smoke, she saw her squadron retreating. Most of them were still alive. She had done her job. On the Indomitable, Admiral Hyun received the confirmation. "Target marked. Dr. Choi, prepare to fire the weapon." Minji's hands flew over her controls. "Weapon charging. We need the Vanguard at minimum safe distance." Borum had been waiting for this order. Her Vanguard had done terrible damage, but the cost was devastating. More than half her ships were destroyed or crippled. The survivors were battered and running low on ammunition. But they had accomplished their mission. The harvesters were fully engaged and pursuing. "All ships retreat to designated coordinates," Borum ordered. "Maximum speed. Do not stop for disabled vessels. We must get clear of the blast zone." Her ships turned and ran. The harvesters, sensing victory, chased them with single-minded fury. The entire enemy fleet poured into the Helios system, pursuing what they thought was a broken, fleeing enemy. They had no idea they were entering a trap. Captain Taman commanded the Sacrifice Wing, volunteers whose mission was to delay the harvesters just long enough for the weapon to fire. They positioned themselves between the retreating vanguard and the pursuing enemy, a thin line of ships facing overwhelming force. "Hold position," Taman ordered. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Make every shot count. We just need 2 more minutes." His ships opened fire, and the harvesters responded with devastating force. Taman's flagship shuddered under impacts. Shields failed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Crew members died at their stations. But the line held. 90 seconds. Half the Sacrifice Wing was destroyed. The harvesters were breaking through. 60 seconds. Taman's ship was dead in space, engines gone, weapons offline. He could see harvester boarding pods launching toward his vessel. 30 seconds. Taman looked at his remaining crew. "It has been an honor," he said quietly. "The honor is ours, Captain," they replied together. 0. Dr. Minji activated the stellar weapon. The platforms hidden throughout the Helios system came alive. They had been storing energy from the star, for months compressing and containing it with magnetic fields that pushed human technology to its absolute limit. Now they released everything at once. The star seemed to explode, but it was controlled, directed. A beam of stellar fire 100 kilometers wide lanced out, aimed with perfect precision at the beacon Yunji had planted. The beam contained the power output of an entire sun concentrated into a single devastating moment. It hit the harvester fleet like divine judgment. Ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized instantly by temperatures that could melt planets. The beam struck the Nexus Prime dead center. The massive vessel held together for 1 second before it disintegrated, torn apart by forces that could destroy worlds. The stellar fire swept through the harvester fleet like a scythe through wheat. 70% of their ships died in 10 seconds. The rest scattered, their hive mind disrupted by the death of the Nexus. For the first time in their existence, the harvesters felt something like fear. Admiral Hyun did not give them time to recover. "All ships, pursue and destroy, show no mercy, kill them all." The Allied fleet, positioned safely outside the kill zone, swept in for the final battle. The remaining harvesters were disorganized, confused. vulnerable. The disciplined Allied forces tore into them with systematic brutality. Borum's battered vanguard joined the pursuit. For every world they destroyed, for every person they killed, make them pay for it all. What followed was not a battle, but an execution. Harvester ships that had seemed unstoppable weeks ago were now helpless prey. Human tactics, human weapons, and human determination proved absolutely superior. The alien species who had learned to fight like humans now demonstrated their lessons. It took 6 hours to hunt down and destroy the last harvester ship. When it was over, when the final enemy vessel was reduced to debris, a strange silence fell across the Allied fleet. Concordia Station had changed. The beautiful decorations were gone. The ceremonial chambers were now filled with tactical displays and weapon schematics. The station that had been a symbol of peace was now a war headquarters. Species that had spent centuries in harmony were now learning the language of violence from the people they had dismissed. Ambassador Jiwoo returned to the station for the first time in 8 months. Her hair was completely white now, aged by stress and sleepless nights. But her eyes were sharp and cold. Next to her stood Admiral Hyun in his military uniform, now bearing the rank of Supreme Commander of Allied Forces. Captain Taemin was there too, no longer commanding a single ship but an entire battle group. The council chamber was full. Every species had sent representatives. They sat quietly waiting. High Chancellor Thune sat at the center, his crystalline form still dull and lifeless. Councillor Vrex sat in the back, no longer proud and loud. His species had been reduced to refugees. Ambassador Queller sat near the front, watching the humans with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. Jiwoo stood at the podium where she had made her final plea 8 months ago. The silence was complete. These species had spent months watching their civilization burn. 17 star systems were gone, billions dead. Their fleets were shattered. They had no choice now but to listen. The terms are simple, Jiwoo began. Her voice was clear and strong. Admiral Hyun will have complete military authority over all forces. Every ship, every soldier, every resource will be under human command. There will be no debate on tactics, no votes on strategy. When we give orders, you follow them immediately and completely. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one objected. They could not. They had no power left. Second, Jiwoo continued, every species will contribute resources based on assessments that human economists have prepared. These quotas are not negotiable. Your economies will be directed entirely toward the war effort. Luxury production stops. Entertainment industries close. Everything goes to building weapons and ships. She pulled up a holographic document that showed the numbers. Some representatives gasped at the percentages. It would mean hardship, shortages, sacrifice, but no one argued. Third, Jiwoo said, her voice growing colder, human military doctrine will be adopted by all forces. This means you will learn to fight in ways that your species find disturbing. There will be no honor duels, no ceremonial combat, no minimizing casualties. You will learn to kill efficiently and without hesitation, because the harvesters will show you no mercy, and we will teach you to show them none either. The chamber remained silent, but it was the silence of people swallowing bitter medicine. Fourth, Jiwoo said, this council will issue a formal apology to humanity. It will be recorded and distributed. It will be taught in schools and remembered in history. You will acknowledge that you ignored our warnings, that you mocked our preparations, that your arrogance led directly to the deaths of billions. This is not negotiable. Councillor Vrex stood slowly. His voice was hollow and broken. You are punishing us, humiliating us while our people die. Jiwoo turned to face him directly. No, Counselor. We are ensuring this never happens again. Future generations will learn from your mistakes. They will learn that wisdom can come from unexpected places. They will learn that dismissing warnings has consequences. Admiral Hyun stepped forward. His voice was hard as steel. We have no time for hurt feelings. The main harvester fleet arrives in 3 months and 2 weeks. Every hour spent arguing is an hour we could spend preparing. You accept all human terms now or we leave. We will defend human space. The rest of you can face the harvesters alone. You have 1 hour. The vote was unanimous. Every species accepted every term without changes. High Chancellor Thune read the formal apology himself. His voice shook with shame as he admitted that the council had been wrong, that humanity had been right. that billions had died because of their failure to listen. The apology was broadcast across every world, a moment of humiliation that would echo through history. Then the real work began. Human officers spread throughout the Allied fleet, taking command of alien vessels. The culture shock was immediate and brutal. A Voskan commander, trained to issue formal challenges before combat, was horrified when his new human advisor told him to ambush an enemy patrol. "That is dishonorable," the Voskan protested. "We do not strike without warning." The human advisor, Lieutenant Sora, looked at him with cold eyes. "Honor will not save your children. Results will. Execute the ambush or I will find someone who will." The ambush worked perfectly. The Voskan destroyed an entire harvester patrol without losing a single ship. The commander stared at the wreckage, understanding that everything he believed about warfare was wrong. In shipyards across the galaxy, alien workers learned to manufacture human weapons. Dr. Minji personally oversaw the technology transfer, teaching engineers how to build plasma weapons and gravitational disruptors. A Thelian engineer complained that the designs lacked elegance. "These weapons are crude," he said. "They have no beauty." "They are designed to kill, not impress," Minji replied sharply. "Build them exactly as specified. Every change reduces effectiveness." The training was hardest on species that had never experienced real combat. Human instructors pushed them beyond what they thought were their limits. Alien soldiers learned to ignore pain, to keep fighting when wounded, to never surrender until dead. A young Soran soldier collapsed during training, crying that he could not continue. His human instructor, Sergeant Bora, knelt beside him. Her voice was not unkind, but it was firm. "Your homeworld is ash," she said quietly. "Your family is probably dead. You can sit here and cry about it, or you can stand up and make sure no one else loses what you lost. The harvesters do not care about your tears. So get up, soldier. Get up and fight." The Soran stood. He finished the exercise. He became one of the best soldiers in his unit. Admiral Hyun implemented his strategy across the remaining 400 systems under Council control. The harvesters were advancing on multiple fronts. Hyun could not defend everything, so he did not try. "We evacuate these 40 systems," he said, marking them on the tactical display. "Pull everyone back to defensive positions here and here. We create kill zones. We force the harvesters through choke points where we can concentrate firepower." "You are abandoning those worlds?" a council representative asked, horrified. "I am saving the people on those worlds," Hyun corrected coldly. "Empty planets can be recolonized later. Dead civilians cannot be resurrected. We evacuate now or they die later. Choose." The evacuations began immediately. Billions of people were moved to safer systems. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. Human logistics officers coordinated the largest refugee movement in galactic history, moving entire populations in weeks. Captain Taman led the rear guard during one evacuation. His battle group held the line while civilian transports fled a doomed system. The harvesters came in overwhelming force, and Taman's ships fought desperately to buy time. "Sir, we have bought them enough time," his first officer said urgently. "We need to withdraw now or we will die here." Taman watched the tactical display. The last civilian transport was still loading refugees, children, elderly, families. "2 more minutes," he said calmly. "Sir, we cannot survive 2 more minutes against this many enemies." "Then we die buying those people time," Taman said simply. "That is the job. That is always the job." They lasted 3 minutes before retreating, their ships battered and burning but intact. Every civilian transport escaped safely. Taman's report to Admiral Hyun was brief. Mission accomplished. No civilian casualties. As the deadline approached, Dr. Minji finalized humanity's secret weapon. The stellar engineering platforms were complete, hidden in a system designated as a trap. The platforms could manipulate the star itself, storing its energy and releasing it as a directed weapon. "It will work," she told Admiral Hyun. "One shot. If we can lure the harvesters into the kill zone, we can destroy most of their fleet in seconds. And if we cannot position them correctly," Hyun asked. Minji was quiet for a moment. "Then we fight conventionally. And many more people die. Millions more." Ambassador Jiwoo spent her time maintaining morale. She gave speeches to soldiers and civilians. She visited hospitals where wounded were recovering. She reminded people why they were fighting, what they were protecting. She met privately with Counselor Vrex one day. The old Soran looked defeated, his proud bearing completely gone. My people hate me, he said quietly. They blame me for not listening to your warnings. They should blame you, Jiwoo said without sympathy. You let pride kill billions. You let prejudice blind you to truth. I know, Vrex whispered. If I could go back and change it, you cannot, Jiwoo interrupted sharply. None of us can change the past. So instead you honor the dead by helping the living. You have experience. You have knowledge, use it. Teach the next generation to be better than you were. Vrex looked at her, seeing no forgiveness in her face, but he saw something else, purpose, a path forward. What can I do? Help evacuate your people, Jiwoo said. Coordinate relief efforts for refugees. Rebuild what was broken. You cannot undo your mistakes, counselor, but you can work to make sure they are never repeated. The 3-month deadline approached rapidly. The world of Velcros died on a Tuesday morning. It was a peaceful planet, home to 8 billion souls who spent their days creating art and poetry. They had not known war for over 1,000 years. Their planetary defenses consisted of weather satellites and navigation beacons. When the ships arrived from dark space, Velcros had no way to fight back. The broadcast reached the Council 6 hours later. A terrified voice, a female broadcaster, describing ships that looked alive. Ships that landed and released swarms of smaller creatures. The creatures consumed everything, trees, animals, people. The broadcast ended with screaming, then silence that stretched forever. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Thune stood before the assembled representatives. His crystalline body looked gray and lifeless. We are under attack, he announced. An extragalactic force has entered our space. They have destroyed Velcros and 3 other systems. Investigation teams sent to examine the sites found nothing. No structures, no bodies, just empty worlds stripped of all life. The chamber exploded in panic. Representatives shouted questions. How was this possible? Where did they come from? What do they want? Councillor Vrex stood, trying to restore order. We must mobilize every ship. Every species must contribute to our defense. Defense with what? Ambassador Queller asked sharply. Our ships are not built for war. Our weapons are ceremonial. These invaders, these harvesters, they are built to kill. Then we learn to fight, Vrex said, but his voice shook. We had a chance to learn, Queller said coldly. 6 months ago. A species warned us this was coming. They begged us to prepare. We laughed at them. Everyone in the chamber knew who Queller meant. The silence was heavy with shame. Send messages to humanity, Thune ordered. Every channel, every frequency, tell them we were wrong. Tell them we need their help. The messages went out immediately. Dozens of them, from different species and officials. All said the same thing in different words. We were wrong. Please help us. Please come back. We are sorry. For 3 weeks, there was no response. In that time, 6 more systems fell to the harvesters. Billions died. The council tried to organize defenses, assembling fleets from ships never meant for combat. It was chaos. Centuries of peace had made them forget how to coordinate military operations. Then, at Vrex Prime, everything changed. Vrex Prime was Councillor Vrex's homeworld, a planet of 4 billion Saurans living in massive cities that stretched across continents. When the harvesters entered the system, Vrex had managed to gather 300 ships. They were cargo haulers and passenger liners with weapons hastily bolted to their hulls. It was pathetic, but it was all they had. Fleet Commander Borum watched from her ship, still 3 hours away at maximum speed. She was a career officer with short black hair and a scar on her cheek from a pirate fight years ago. She had been leading human reconnaissance missions, watching the harvester advance and gathering data. Her orders were clear. Observe only. Do not engage. They are going to die, her tactical officer said quietly. Yes. Borum agreed. She watched. The doomed defense fleet position itself between the harvesters and Vrex Prime. 300 ships against a harvester fleet of over 2,000. It would be a massacre. Borum thought about her orders. Then she thought about the 4 billion people on that planet who were about to die. People who had never mocked humanity. People who were innocent. Prepare for combat, Borum said suddenly. All ships. Commander, Our orders. I know our orders, Borum interrupted, and I am choosing to disobey them. We are human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, even if they do not deserve it. Especially if they do not deserve it. Her small fleet of 40 ships changed course, accelerating toward Vrex Prime. On her bridge, a young officer named Yunji grinned. Yunji was a pilot, not a bridge officer. But Borum kept her close because the girl understood fighting. Finally, Yunji said, I was tired of watching. The human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into the battle. The Council defenders were already being destroyed, their weak weapons barely scratching harvester hulls. The enemy ships were dark and organic-looking, covered in armor that seemed to be made of bone. They moved like predators, circling and striking with precision. Borum did not bother with communication. Her fleet opened fire, and the harvesters learned what human weapons could do. Missiles moving at a fraction of light speed punched through harvester ships like they were paper. Plasma weapons, firing contained streams of star-hot material, cut enemy vessels in half. Weapons that manipulated gravity made harvester ships collapse inward, crushing themselves. The Council defenders stopped retreating, stunned by what they were seeing. This was not how galactic species fought. There were no challenges issued, no attempts at communication, no honorable single combat. Humans just killed with brutal, terrifying efficiency. Yunji launched in her fighter, leading 12 other pilots. Human fighters were small and fast, armed with weapons that seemed too large for their size. They moved through the battle like hunting sharks, targeting harvester engines and weapons. Yunji destroyed 4 enemy fighters in 2 minutes. Her reflexes, enhanced by implants that let her think faster than normal humans. Targets are adapting, one of her pilots warned. They are learning our patterns. Then we change, Yunji replied. Never do the same thing twice. Keep them guessing. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, more than half the harvester fleet was destroyed. The rest retreated, which shocked everyone. No one had ever seen harvesters retreat before. The cost was heavy. 26 of Borum's 40 ships were destroyed or crippled. 4 of Yunji's 12 pilots died. The Council fleet was reduced to less than 50 ships. But Vrex Prime survived. Councillor Vrex stood on his flagship, staring at the human ships as they regrouped. His world was damaged, cities burned, millions were dead, but his species still existed. A communication channel opened, and Fleet Commander Borum appeared on his screen. She looked exhausted, her uniform scorched from a fire on her bridge. Councillor Vrex, she said formally. The Harvester Vanguard has been stopped. They will return with more ships. You need to evacuate your people now. Vrex stared at her. This human, this species he had mocked so cruelly, had just saved his world. Why? He asked. Why did you come? We did not deserve your help. Borum was quiet for a moment. No, she agreed. You did not. But the civilians on your planet did. The children who never mocked us. The elderly who never laughed at our warnings. They deserve to live. We came for them, not for you. She closed the channel. Her damaged fleet moved away from Vrex Prime, heading back toward human space. An hour later, every species in the galaxy received the same broadcast. Fleet Commander Borum appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. This is Commander Borum of the Human Defense Fleet, she said. Her voice was calm but cold. The force that attacked Vrex Prime was a scouting element, a small part of a much larger fleet. Our intelligence indicates the main harvester fleet will arrive in 4 months. That fleet contains over 900 capital ships. Your current defenses will not stop them. You will all die. She paused, letting those words sink in. Humanity is willing to help you survive. But this time, you will listen to us. You will follow our commands. You will fight the way we tell you to fight. You will give us everything we ask for without question. These are not negotiations. This is the price of survival. You have 48 hours to decide. The broadcast ended. In homes across the galaxy, People watched the recording again and again. They saw the battle footage showing human weapons tearing apart harvesters that had seemed unstoppable. They saw the discipline and coordination of human forces. They saw what happened when humanity stopped asking permission and started giving orders. High Chancellor Thune contacted Admiral Hyun directly. When Hyun's face appeared on the screen, Thune saw no anger there. No satisfaction. Just cold, hard determination. "We accept," Thune said. His voice was barely a whisper. "All of your terms, everything you demand, just help us survive." Admiral Hyun nodded once. "Prepare your people for total war, Chancellor, because that is what is coming. And war is what humans know best." On Earth, in the command center, Admiral Hyun turned to his staff. "Send them our terms: full military authority, complete resource allocation, adoption of human combat doctrine, formal apology entered into historical record, and a permanent seat on the Reformed Council." "They will agree to everything," Minji said. "Yes," Hyun replied. "Fear is a powerful motivator. They ignored wisdom. They dismissed warnings. Now they will learn through pain. It is a harsh teacher, but an effective one." Dae-hyun was monitoring council communications. He heard representatives arguing, some calling the human terms too harsh, others saying humanity was being vindictive. But underneath the arguments he heard something else. Terror. Pure, absolute terror. "They are fighting among themselves," Dae-hyun reported. "Some species want to accept, others want to negotiate." "They have nothing to negotiate with," Hyun said. "They will accept, or they will die. It is that simple." And he was right. Within 48 hours, every council species had accepted every human demand. The formal apology was read by High Chancellor Thune himself, broadcast across the galaxy for all to hear. It was humiliating, but it was necessary. 6 months passed in silence. The human borders remained closed, and no one knew what was happening inside human territory. Trade ships that once carried goods between human and alien worlds now sat empty in docks. Stations that humans had built were abandoned, their lights dark and systems powered down. Every species in the galaxy was starting to feel the absence. The Council tried sending messages. Hundreds of them. Apologies, requests for dialogue, even offers of better trade terms. All of them received the same automated response. A cold mechanical voice that said humanity was no longer accepting communications from Council space. On Earth, deep beneath the mountains, Admiral Hyun Lee walked through a command center that never slept. Screens covered every wall, showing construction yards on 100 different worlds. Ships were being built at a pace that seemed impossible. Weapons factories ran day and night. Every human colony was contributing everything they had. A woman approached him, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Dr. Minji Choi had been working for 6 months without a real break. She carried data pads and wore a lab coat stained with coffee. "Admiral, the projections are holding. We will have 400 carriers ready in 3 months. The weapon platforms are ahead of schedule." Hyun nodded slowly. "And the main weapon? The star?" Minji looked around even though everyone here knew the secret. "It will work. We have run the simulations 1,000 times. If we can position the enemy fleet correctly, we can destroy most of them in a single strike." "If," Hyun repeated. "Everything depends on that word." Across the room, a young man named Dae-hyun sat with headphones on, listening to transmissions from Council space. He was an intelligence officer, trained to understand alien languages and decode their communications. Right now he was listening to a conversation between Council members, and what he heard made him smile grimly. "Admiral," Dae-hyun called out, "you need to hear this." Hyun walked over and put on a headset. The voice of Counselor Vrex came through, speaking to other council members in a private channel that human technology had easily intercepted. "The human silence is causing problems," Vrex said. His voice sounded worried, which was new. Vrex never sounded worried. "Medical supplies from human colonies are gone. The Voskan plague is spreading without human antivirals. 3 species have contacted me asking when humans will return to trade." Another voice responded, the insectoid clicking of Ambassador Queller. "Perhaps we were too hasty in our judgment. I have reviewed the data the humans presented. It was compelling. It was paranoia, Vrex snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. Humans see threats everywhere. Then why did they leave? Queller asked. Why recall every human from council space? Why close every trade route? That is not anger. That is preparation. The recording ended. Hyun removed the headset and looked at Daehyun. How widespread is this? Growing every day, Daehyun replied. 30 species have tried to send ambassadors to human space. All turned away. The council is fracturing. Some want to apologize. Others still think we overreacted. Let them think whatever they want, Hyun said. How much time until the invasion? Minji checked her data. 8 months until the first contact. Maybe less if they accelerate. Hyun turned back to the screen showing ship construction. Then we work faster. Far from Earth, Ambassador Queller was doing something dangerous. He had traveled alone in a small ship to the human border. He had to see for himself what was happening. He had to know if the humans were right. Queller was an insectoid being with 4 arms and large compound eyes. His species valued truth and logic above all things. When the humans had presented their data about the approaching threat, he had been one of only 7 council members to vote in favor of reviewing it. In the months since, he had studied that data carefully. The humans were right. Something was coming. His ship approached the border and immediately human patrol vessels surrounded him. These were new ships, designs he had never seen before. Sleeker, more weapons. They moved with precision that spoke of constant drilling and practice. Unknown vessel, you are approaching restricted space, a voice said over his communications. Turn back now. This is Ambassador Queller of the Council, he transmitted. I come to speak with human leadership. I have studied your data. You were right. I want to help. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned softer but still firm. Ambassador, we appreciate that. But it is too late. We warned the Council. They refused to listen. Now we must prepare alone. But I believe you, Queller said desperately. I can convince others. Can you? The voice asked. Can you really? Because we tried for months and no one listened. Now billions will die because of that choice. Go back to your people, Ambassador. Tell them to prepare their defenses. Tell them what is coming. And if they do not believe me, another pause. Then we will do what humans have always done. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. But first we protect our own. Safe journey, Ambassador. The human ships escorted him back across the border and then vanished. One moment they were on his sensors. The next they were gone, disappeared by stealth systems that made them invisible. Queller sat alone in his cockpit, staring at empty space where the human ships had been. Back on Earth, the mobilization continued. Every factory was making weapons or ships. Every scientist was working on defensive technology. Every soldier was training for the battle to come. Children learned emergency protocols in school. Elderly people volunteered to work in factories. Humanity had become a single organism focused entirely on survival. In training facilities across human space, soldiers practiced new tactics. They learned to fight in ways that would horrify the Council. No mercy, no hesitation, just cold efficiency. Officers drilled their troops until movements became instinct. Because when the enemy came, there would be no time to think. Admiral Hyun rarely slept anymore. He walked through shipyards, inspecting vessels personally. He visited training centers and watched soldiers practice. He reviewed battle plans with his staff until his eyes burned. Every decision he made might determine whether humanity survived or died. One day, Minji found him standing alone in an observation deck, staring out at the ships being built in orbit around Mars. She stood next to him silently. Do you think they will come asking for help? She finally asked. Yes, Hyun said simply. When the dying starts, they will remember us. And will we answer? Hyun was quiet for a long time. We will do what is right. Not for them, for us. Because that is who we are. We do not abandon people to die, even people who wronged us. In the council chambers, life continued. Representatives argued over trade disputes. Cultural festivals were planned. The machinery of galactic civilization kept turning, but there was an unease now, a feeling that something was wrong. The human absence was like a missing tooth, constantly noticed, constantly uncomfortable. Then one day, a mining colony on the edge of council space went silent. No distress call. No explanation. One moment the automated beacons were transmitting normally. The next moment nothing. Just empty silence. The council sent an investigation team. They never reported back. A week later, another colony went dark. Then another. Then another. Daehyun brought the reports to Admiral Hyun. The older man read them carefully, his expression never changing. When he finished, he nodded once. "It has begun," Hyun said quietly. "Minji, how much time do we need?" 4 more months, she replied. 4 months and we will be ready. Then we pray the council survives that long. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Thune was receiving reports of the silent colonies. His crystalline form seemed duller than usual. Other council members were demanding explanations. Pirates, some said. Equipment failures, others suggested. Natural disasters, a few proposed. Only Ambassador Queller stood and said what everyone feared but no one wanted to admit. The humans were right, Queller said clearly. Something is coming. Something that destroys colonies without warning. We need to contact humanity. We need to beg for their help. We will do no such thing, Vreck said angrily. We will not grovel to a species barely a century old. We will handle this ourselves. With what? Queller demanded. Our ships are explorers, not warships. Our soldiers train for ceremonies, not combat. We have forgotten how to fight real wars. The humans have not. Then we will learn, Vreck said. But in his voice, Queller heard something new. Fear. The colonies continued to fall, one every few days, then one every day. The pattern was clear now. Something was sweeping through council space, destroying everything in its path, and it was accelerating. In human space, Admiral Hyun watched the reports and counted down the days until humanity would be ready. 4 months. They needed 4 more months. The galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson about ignoring warnings. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a cathedral of steel and light. Hundreds of alien species sat in their designated sections, their bodies ranging from towering crystalline beings to small floating creatures that glowed in the dark. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Ji-woo Kim, a human woman with tired eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. She had been doing this job for 15 years, and every single meeting felt like talking to a wall. Next to her stood Captain Taemin Park, younger and more rigid in his military uniform. His jaw was tight as he watched the council members whisper among themselves, many not even bothering to look at the humans presenting their case. Ji-woo tapped the holographic display, and images filled the air above them. Charts, numbers, sensor readings from the deep space monitoring stations that humanity had built at the edge of the galaxy. The data was clear, at least to human eyes. Something massive was coming toward them from beyond their galaxy, something that moved with purpose and destroyed everything in its path. Honorable council members, Ji-woo said, her voice steady despite knowing what was coming. Our deep space arrays have detected an anomaly approaching from extragalactic space. The readings suggest a fleet of approximately 1,000 vessels, each larger than our biggest carriers. They have already destroyed 3 dwarf galaxies in their path. They will reach our galaxy in approximately 18 months. She paused, letting that sink in. Some of the aliens looked bored. Others seemed amused. A reptilian creature rose from his seat. Counselor Vrex, a member of the Sauron species, was over 300 years old and had made it his personal mission to remind humans that they were the youngest species in the council. His scales were dark green and his eyes were cold as he looked down at the humans. Ambassador Kim, Vrex said, his voice dripping with condescension. Once again, humanity brings us fairy tales and asks us to be afraid. Your species has been part of this council for only 83 years. That is barely a moment in galactic time. Yet you constantly insist that danger lurks around every corner. Laughter rippled through sections of the chamber. Taemin felt his fist clench, but he remained still. Ji-woo had warned him this would happen. Counselor Vrex, Ji-woo replied calmly. I understand your skepticism, but the data is irrefutable. We have triple-checked these readings. We have compared them with historical records of similar historical records. Another voice interrupted. This one belonged to High Chancellor Thune, a being made entirely of crystalline structures that refracted light in rainbow patterns. Thune was ancient, over 2,000 years old, and spoke with the weight of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall. Child, your entire species has existed for only a fraction of my lifetime. What historical records could you possibly have that we do not? More laughter. Ji-woo felt the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders, but she continued. We may be young, she said, but our sensor technology is advanced. We have shown you this before. Our detection capabilities exceed your primitive instruments. Vrex cut her off again. are notorious for false readings. Remember the invasion fleet you detected 5 years ago that turned out to be a comet cluster? Or the weapon signatures that were actually just solar flares? The chamber erupted in laughter now. Even species that usually remained neutral were joining in. Taemin watched Jiwoo's shoulders sag slightly. She had been fighting this battle for so long and it never got easier. Those incidents were explained, Jiwoo said quietly. We corrected our systems. We learned. That is what my species does. We adapt, we improve, and now we are telling you that something is coming and we need to prepare. Prepare for what? Vrex stood fully now, his massive form towering over the council floor. Humanity, you are a species obsessed with war. You brought your violence to the stars with you. You see threats everywhere because that is how your short-lived paranoid minds work. The galaxy has been at peace for over 600 years. We do not need your fear-mongering. Jiwoo pulled up more data. These signatures match no known natural phenomenon. The trajectory is precise. The speed suggests propulsion technology. This is not natural. This is an invasion force. Enough! High Chancellor Thune's voice rang out like a bell. The Council has heard your concerns, Ambassador Kim. We have heard them many times before. Your species has contributed little to our civilization, except anxiety and military buildup. You hoard weapons. You practice war games. You refuse to embrace the peace we have cultivated for centuries. Because peace must be protected, Taemin said suddenly, speaking for the first time. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. You mock us for being ready to fight, but who do you call when pirates raid your trade routes? Who hunts down the criminals that your species consider too dangerous to face? Humans. Always humans. Vrex laughed, a harsh barking sound. You perform grunt work, Captain. Police duties. Do not mistake that for importance. Taemin stepped forward, his voice rising. 18 months. That is all the time we have. When that fleet arrives, when they start destroying your worlds, you will remember this moment. You will remember that we warned you. A threat? Vrex said. Are you threatening this council, human? No, Jiwoo said quickly, putting a hand on Taemin's arm. We are begging you to listen. Please look at the data. Verify it yourselves. Send your own ships to investigate. Just do not ignore this. High Chancellor Thune's crystalline form seemed to dim. The Council will vote on whether to even review your data, Ambassador Kim. However, I believe I can predict the outcome. You have cried wolf too many times. Your credibility is exhausted. The vote was quick. Out of 412 Council members, only 7 voted to review the human data. The insectoid Ambassador Queller was among them, Jiwoo noticed. At least someone believed them, but it was not enough. Furthermore, Thune continued, this council votes to censure humanity for deliberately spreading panic and fear among peaceful species. You are hereby stripped of speaking privileges for the next 5 years. Any further attempts to present military intelligence will be considered an act of aggression. The chamber erupted in approval. Species that had ignored humanity for decades were now applauding their silencing. Jiwoo stood there, data still floating uselessly in the air around her. 15 years of diplomacy, 15 years of trying to build bridges, all of it gone in a moment. She reached up and slowly removed the council insignia from her uniform. The small pin that marked her as an official ambassador. She held it in her palm for a moment, then let it fall to the floor. The metallic clink echoed in the sudden silence. Captain Park, she said clearly, please transmit code Exodus to all human vessels and colonies. Taemin smiled grimly and tapped his wristcom. Transmitting now, Ambassador. What is the meaning of this? Vrex demanded. Jiwoo looked up at the council, at all those alien faces that had dismissed and mocked her people for so long. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We withdraw from all treaties, all trade agreements, all defense pacts. We are done begging you to listen. You cannot, Thune began. We can, Jiwoo said, and we are. When that fleet arrives, when your worlds burn, remember that we tried to save you. Goodbye, Council. She turned and walked toward the exit, Taemin beside her. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Voices shouted, some angry, some confused, but neither human looked back. In orbit around Concordia Station, human ships began powering up their engines. Within an hour, every human vessel in council space was moving toward the border. By the end of the day, humanity had vanished from the galactic stage entirely. In the deep dark of space, beyond where any council sensors reached, something ancient and hungry continued its approach. The countdown had begun, but only humanity was watching the clock.